Hello, I'm Victoria Blunt and I am an actor. Over the past year, like many of us in the industry, I've really missed my work. And what I missed the most was the sense of community and connection, the people that you meet and the valuable lessons that you learn behind the scenes. So, I created a virtual green room, a place to connect with fellow creatives and find out their route through the industry, how they navigated difficult times, and advice that we can apply to our own careers.
I'm all right. I'm just trying to figure out all my settings.
Today, I'm chatting with Steve Pemberton. He's one of the writers behind hit shows like Inside Number 9 and The League of Gentlemen, and he's an actor. You might have seen him in Happy Valley, Benidorm, or Whitechapel, to name a few. I had the pleasure of performing on stage with Steve, and he's just as fun and as generous as he comes across. I hope you enjoy this chat.
I'm doing an online quiz tonight for the school, my kids' school, that involves me hosting it to 100 people, and I've been terrified of trying to change all my settings so I don't get 100 people on Zoom.
I did a Zoom play over lockdown, and that exact thing happened where the people that wanted to watch it were sort of a bit older and they couldn't manage their settings. And during the play, people were like, "Brian, can you bring the wine?" You have, in lockdown, just written the whole of a series of Inside Number 9, which I cannot get my head around how you remained so productive in that time. Like, what was that process like, working like that?
It was weird, yeah. I mean, it was needs must, really, because we couldn't see each other, Rees and I. And we normally are in a room, we're constantly working together, talking to each other. So doing this is a very intense experience. You know, it's just you and the computer, and it's the two of you. Whereas in a room, you go for a coffee, you pick a book up, you just chat. So it meant that we got a lot of work done very quickly, but it was hard to do a full day. In terms of creatively, it was exhausting.
Yeah.
But we got into a rhythm and a routine, and I think the hardest thing about adapting to anything is just getting into a good routine. And the hardest part of writing is just starting to do it. It's the actual starting, because once you have something, you can work with it. So we found a way of sharing the same script page, so either of us could make corrections from our own keyboards. So I'd be typing away and I'd notice nothing was happening because he'd taken over the cursor to correct some spelling, and I was like, "Get off! I'm in control here." So yeah, it was very weird, but you know, like I say, once we'd got into a rhythm, it became the new normal, you know?
Yeah. And did you find the content of what you were writing was different?
Actually we did. I mean, we always try and have a mixture of episodes anyway, so there's definitely a couple which are a bit lighter and funnier. But we thought practically about stripping things down so that there are not so many characters. Because we knew if we were going to film, in a COVID-friendly way.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot more two-handers or three-handers,
Okay.
which we filmed in a studio.
How was actually filming it then during all of this?
Well, we started filming Series 6 in March last year, 2020.
Right.
And we got 3 days into an episode, and then it all kicked off. So we had to stop. And then we waited till pretty much December of last year to pick it up again, with the new restrictions. So everyone in the crew had masks on. The big thing was everyone was tested 2 or 3 times a week. So you felt pretty comfortable. But in terms of the crew, they kept away as much as possible, or kept within their departments. And if one person, say in the costume department, got ill, the whole costume department would then have to go away for 2 weeks. So at one point we lost our cameraman, at one point we lost our caterer, at one point we lost the art director, and that was challenging. because new people had to be drafted in last minute. But, you know, it's all about finding new ways and being resilient, and we got through it.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. You did as well. Thank God you did, because just being able to film something during that time and employing so many people who, you know, self-employed people especially have struggled quite a lot. So being able to kind of do that much work in that period of time is just brilliant. What led you to get involved in acting when you were a kid?
Do you know, I have no idea. I'm one of these people whose family doesn't have anyone, you know, in the family. We never went to the theatre. I just always loved, from the age of 5, just messing around, putting different hats on, doing funny voices, making up stories. I loved English, I loved drama. And I can remember right back to the age of 5 going in the Wendy house and seeing the box of dressing up clothes. And that was what I gravitated towards. I've no idea where it came from.
You decided though to go and pursue it you went to Bretton Hall, is that right?
Yes, I did drama as an O level, then as an A level. So I stayed with the subject as long as I could. And then I also was quite good at other subjects like languages. And I sort of pretended to my parents, like, oh, I can't decide between doing drama and French and German. I always knew what I wanted to do, but so they were supportive but concerned, as any sensible parent would be. And they said, please, I mean, my dad more or less begged me to carry on with my languages. So that, and also I did not feel confident enough to apply to drama schools, the RADAs, the Centrals, whatever, the London adventure. I just didn't feel ready to do that, coming from Chorley. So a friend of mine who I did my A-level drama with applied to Bretton Hall, and I literally copied that off her, and we both ended up going there.
Wow. And that's where you end up meeting Mark Rees and Jeremy, who turn out to be your lifelong writing partners.
Yeah, I'd always written, and when me and Mark met each other, we were in the same year. Rees was in the year below. We instantly clicked. We instantly felt like we'd had the same influences, the same background. It was just me and Mark to begin with. Like I say, Rees was in the year below.
Yeah.
And then he was exactly the same as us. We had the same sensibilities. So we gravitated towards each other. Jeremy was actually studying at Leeds University. So Bretton Hall was part of Leeds University. We didn't meet him until after we'd left. And we started satirizing the other students and lecturers who were at the college, and just messing around. And I think a lot of writing, when you are an actor, is just improvising and then writing it down. I mean, it's as simple as that. I never considered myself a writer. I've never studied writing. But we just had a thing where we would devise, I suppose is a better word for it. And we devised plays and we put them on at the National Student Drama Festival. And that was the beginnings, really, of thinking, oh, I can make my own work. By taking your work, I mean, you know, you start like with anything, you know, you've got your friends who come and see what you do, and then you're taking what you've done and showing it to the wider world, and people come to review it, and industry professionals are seeing what you've done. So already by doing that, we'd begun this process of, you know, not I'm going to be an actor and just wait to try and get an agent and do auditions. We'd also started this other process of creating our own work. But when we left Bretton Hall, we kind of went our separate ways. We didn't build on that. We did want to act. Ultimately, we wanted to be actors, and it's bloody hard work.
So when you graduated, do you remember your showcase? Like, did you get an agent after that, or how did it work out?
I'm laughing because and nobody came. I mean, Bretton Hall was very, very inward-looking, parochial place, and I mean, we were clueless when we left. So there was one person who got a photograph done and did a CV, and we all laughed at him. He said, "Oh, you're pathetic. what are you doing? I mean, a bloody photograph taken. The first job I ever got, and it said, you know, because I looked in the back of the stage. That's all I had. I mean, none of us got an agent coming out of there. Not one of us. No one had a clue. And so I used to look in the back of the stage, and there was, you know, a couple of jobs there that you could apply for. And when it said we need a photo, I just got three copies of a holiday photo from Boots. And I thought, I'm not going to get 5, you know, I'll get 3. And it was me with a palm tree behind me. So we were utterly clueless.
Oh my God. I don't know if they still do that, but when we graduated, there's a horrible thing of having your CV with your headshot attached to it. And you put a pile of them outside the theatre and you do 2 shows, but everyone would count how many CVs were there. And then I remember after the first show, I counted and one of mine had been taken. And I was like, oh my God. And then after the second show, I came back and it had been put back.
It had been put back, but someone had just used it to write something on.
You gave me some really amazing advice, and I've never forgotten this. You said the key is to start small. You said sometimes people will launch and they'll go for it and things will just roll and roll and roll and it'll be amazing. But you said for the vast majority of us, it's about building brick by brick your career and just starting small and focusing on what's going to get you to the next step. And I thought that was such amazing advice at a time when I really needed to hear that as well.
One of the phrases that stuck with me, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that is so true. You know, you will get people who will burn brightly. And there was someone cast maybe in the year above or below us who was cast in a soap opera in Emmerdale. And we were like, wow, can you imagine such a thing happening? And they did the job for 6 months and then didn't do anything else beyond that. So, and that's fine. But you have to take a long-term view, don't you? I mean, you kind of... like I said, my only avenue for finding work was the back of the stage. That was it. And I got my first job, which was a company called White Horse Theatre. Maybe they still advertise in the back of the stage, but they tour Germany, schools in Germany with 3 people in a van. And you do 2 plays to German school children in English. But it helps if you speak German. So I got an audition because I can speak German. So my languages did come to play, and I could drive. That was the other big tick. So I auditioned and I didn't get the job. So it's obviously the acting that had let me down. And then someone had dropped out and they were desperate. They said, who's the guy who speaks German and can drive? You know, whoever he is, we'll have him. And I got the job. That was my first job, but it came out at the back of the stage with a holiday photograph from Boots, and I didn't get the job. And then I did, you know, and out of that, I did get an agent, and the agent was, she used to represent wrestlers, and her address was, she was based in Margate, and her address was the Tiny Tim Theatre brackets opposite Boots. And this was my first agent. I never met her. One of the other actors had this agent and said I could introduce, you know, you write to. They took me on. I never heard from them. So I was going nowhere fast, really, as an actor. Let's be honest. But it's these building blocks. I had an agent. I had something I could start with.
God, there's so much I want to talk to you about. But I also worked for White Horse Theatre.
Oh, did you?
But that was the point where the back of the stage was either theatre and education abroad or pole dancing. They were the only 2 options.
Yes.
And so after the pole dancing didn't work out, I went to Germany and did that. But we had mobile phones and TomToms and all that. And I imagine you were more like sundials and horse and cars.
We used to get an envelope at the start of the week, and it had maps, paper maps, and that was it. So yeah, no phones. It was a great learning experience. You had to do everything. You had to put the setup. You had to get yourself wherever you were going to. You had to have coffee and kuchen with the teachers afterwards. But then kids would come up and ask for your autograph. And sometimes there'd be 20, 30, 40 kids, and you'd start to be a bit like, okay, yeah, I'm that guy, here I am. What play did you do?
We did, so there was 3. We did one of the plays was for the youngest kids, and I only came on at the very end to play a seagull. But I had to do all the sound cues during the show. I'd be sitting backstage with a baby bell, like kind of doing my own thing, and then it'd be silent on stage, and I think, I've missed a cue. And run to this CD player and press play. And I just learned to drive a month before I went over there. And on the day I arrived, they started showing me snow chains because they were about to have a horrendous winter in Bavaria. And they were like, so this is how you're gonna, I was like, I've not even driven on a motorway before. Like, it was nuts. It's kind of crazy that they just give a load of actors a car and a ton of equipment and you're gone.
But what a great experience, what a great learning experience and life experience. So again, it's about building your resilience and the fact that you can do it, and you did do it. And I wouldn't swap any of those jobs for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then at what point did you start to formulate the League of Gentlemen, and when did you decide to take that to Edinburgh?
I was working setting up a theatre company with a friend I'd met at Bretton Hall. And so we used to do shows on the Fringe. So Mark was in one, Rees was in one, I was in most of them. But I spent probably a decade doing these shows, raising money for them, writing begging letters to people, trying to organising insurance on a van so you can drive the set to the theatre. And I loved it. I loved that. I mean, I wasn't making any money whatsoever, but it was all invaluable experience. And the League of Gentlemen grew directly out of that experience of just putting shows on. We used to put on benefit shows for the to raise money for the theatre company, and so Gordon said, why don't we do a comedy night, and you guys write and do sketches. We'd said, yeah, when we're ready, when we've got enough material. And then because this night became free, and it was like, right, well, there's an opportunity, we've got an hour's slot, let's write and come up with some characters. So we did it, and people liked it. And this comedy night included characters like Tubbs and Edward in the local shop, Pauline, Bernice, the agony aunt. So a lot of the characters were there from the very, very beginning. And because that had been quite successful, we decided to book the Canal Cafe Theatre in London, in Maida Vale. And we booked it every Monday night for 3 months. And we came up with this plan that there's no point polishing one good hour. You need a wealth of material to choose the best stuff. I suppose we were quite canny. We knew that Edinburgh was the place to go, and that you've got one chance to arrive in Edinburgh and make a splash. So we didn't just want to say, well, we've got our hours worth of material. We wanted to have 4, 5, 6 hours to choose from, and choose the best. And so we used to do shows every Monday night, and between shows we'd write, and we'd write new sketches for characters that were popular, or we'd try brand new characters. And as long as we changed about a quarter of the material every week, so in 4 weeks' time, we could say to our friends, hey, come back and see it again. It's all different now. Rather than block booking a week where we did the same show every night, we blocked 3 months, once a week, and we ended up with a pile of material. And so when we did go to Edinburgh, we were able to choose the best stuff. But not only that, when people like producers came and talking to us, we knew we had storylines for these characters, because we had 5 sketches for Pauline. We had 6 sketches for the local shop. We had story arcs before anyone had even asked for them. We went in 1996, and we had no agent, we had no backing, we had no promoter. It was just us literally photocopying the leaflets, standing in the Royal Mile, giving them out. And we started with 3 or 4 people in the audience, and we got good review in the Scotsman quite early on in the first week. And so our audience grew, and all from nothing, all from just turning up, driving up in Jeremy's Mini with a bag of props and our own leaflets. And by the end of that 4 weeks, It was incredible. It was like we had agents interested, producers interested, and it's because the show was good and we had put that work in, and it did. I'm guessing it did stand out. So the second year we went back, which is 97, that's when we won the Perrier Award. But the in terms of the impact that had happened the year before, there were a lot of people who didn't get the League of Gentlemen, a lot of people who thought it was a waste of money to be giving these kids a TV budget. It would have been very, very easy for us to have changed everything, because if a producer came along and said, I think you should do it all as a musical, we'd have done it, because a producer telling you this stuff, you're like, yeah, okay. It's very, very tempting. But like I said, I think we just knew that we were going to play this long game. And if it took longer to do it our way, we were going to do it that way. And one of the brilliant things about it is there were 4 of us, and we were a team, and we were a group, and we could collaborate, and we could be a little core of people who talked about all of this stuff. And I think it's a lot harder if you're an individual, because when I was, I got my first ever script commission. This is a different time, but I felt I had a bit less backbone, and I didn't have my mates supporting me, and I did make changes that in retrospect I wish I hadn't made. So there's something about being a really tight-knit group that helps you stay true to what you want to do.
Yeah, and to the vision. Yeah, definitely. So what were you doing in the meantime then, because obviously there's not really money in that, like, were you working in bars and in bits and pieces?
I went to a series of temp agencies in Oxford Street. One of them, as I was just leaving, said, oh, there's a thing here for Variety newspaper, and they want someone to send faxes and make tea and just be an office helper. And I ended up staying there because Variety obviously is the entertainment newspaper. So they gave me more and more to do. They realized that I knew the industry a little bit, and I was massively into films, loved films. And they gave me constant work over that 10-year period. And that's just purely by fluke. I was the one person who walked into that temp agency, and life is full of these moments, isn't it? Had I not got that, then obviously I would have done something else, but that sustained me and was enjoyable and pleasurable as well.
That's the thing as well, isn't it? It's finding the work that, as well as kind of bringing home money and helping you like sustain your life, it's also the stuff that isn't going to kind of destroy your soul in the meantime as well. Like, and so after The League of Gentlemen becomes the biggest hit on TV, was that quite instant when that happened, that it became such a cult hit, or did it take a bit of time to light up?
Well, I think the second series definitely built on the first, but it was pretty instant, yeah. It was so different. It was so cinematic and so beautifully directed and put together that people paid attention to it straight away.
I remember going to a friend's house. I could only watch it at my friend's house because she had a TV in her bedroom, so we could watch it without anyone know we were watching it. But I don't think I've ever called a can of Coke anything other than I can't. So since that day, I believe then you go on, you start doing a lot of telly work on your own. Is there anything that sticks out during your jobbing actor audition times as being a bit of a clanger?
Oh God, I didn't. I mean, I very rarely get jobs from auditions, is the truth of it. So 90% of them have been clangers. I auditioned for a role in Pirates of the Caribbean with the director, with Gore Verbinski, who's a big Hollywood director, and it's a smallish role, but of course I would have done it. It's a big feature film, and it's those roles which are maybe 5 or 6 lines, and you think you know it because it's only 5 or 6 lines, and you're sure you know it, and you've got the script, but it's in your bag, but you know it, you definitely know it, and then they say the first line, and you can't quite. Sorry, just give me that again. And he just sat there very patiently, and I had to go and find in my bag, which was in the other room, my copy of the script, even though they had it there in front of them. And it was just, I knew from that moment, from walking out to get the script, that I hadn't got the job. But to go through with it and then my hands were shaking, and so all of that is just awful. I mean, it's dreadful. So yeah, I very rarely get jobs from auditions. And there was one, I mean, when I went up for Happy Valley, my agent had told me that I didn't need to read. I'm like, well, I just got to go and show my face and not do anything. Perfect. And then the director, we had a good chat. I knew the director, I'd worked with him before, and he said, so your agent told me you don't want to read, is that right? I was like, no, my agent said that I didn't have to. And I found myself going, I will. And I thought, oh no, why did I say that? I haven't prepared this. But you know what? There's probably a good lesson there. I hadn't prepared it at all. I just put it on my knee. I didn't pretend to have learned it. I didn't pretend that I knew it. I didn't pretend that I'd worked out actions to go on this line. And I just literally read it. And then I got the job. So there's a good lesson as well. Sometimes you can overthink, you can over prepare, you can be too set in the way you think you're going to do it. But yeah, I can't give any advice because I don't know. No one knows anything. Yeah, so the League of Gentlemen, we ended up settling into writing partnerships. So even though I'd written a lot with Mark when I was at college, I ended up writing more with Rees when we did the League, and Jeremy and Mark would write together. And after we did 3 series, we did 2 big tours, we did a film. So there was a sense that there were other things to do and that we should perhaps look at getting individual acting agents. And but I kind of felt bereft, you know. I didn't want it to end. I didn't want the League to end, really. But I could see that it was a good opportunity to try other stuff. And in the meantime, we had started to get, as individual actors, a few jobs here and there. So we all got our own acting agents. I did stuff like Benidorm, which I did for 7 years. I did Whitechapel for 4 years. And then I did bits and pieces like Happy Valley. But whilst that was all going on, I didn't want to give up this writing. And so Rees and I decided to come up with a new show, and Psychoville was what we came up with. Psychoville was actually a translation of the League of Gentlemen. When they showed it in Japan and Korea, they didn't know how to say the town where mad things happen. So they called it Psychoville. And we thought we'll just take that for a series. And so, yeah, we had success with that.
Great success with that. And that was 2 series. And then, then you said it led on to Inside Number 9.
Yeah, because I think we were on a good roll at that point. We didn't know whether to do a 3rd series of Psychoville. We weren't sure if there was an appetite for it from the BBC. So we said we'd better have something up our sleeve to come back with. And we didn't have anything planned other than a series of self-contained stories. We didn't know what they were or what linked them together. But I think it was a reaction against doing something like Psychoville, which was a big ongoing narrative, just to go back to telling single stories in like plays almost. Very theatrical in its conception. And again, they commissioned a couple of scripts. They just wanted to know what kind of thing we were going to do. And it's been phenomenal. I mean, we've been commissioned now to do series 6 and 7. And I can't believe it's been the success it has, really.
How many years has that encompassed for Inside Number 9?
Well, we actually had the first meeting about it in 2011.
Wow.
So that's 10 years. But the first series wasn't on until 2014. And
in between all of that, though, you've been, I mean, your CV is like the Donmar Warehouse, the National Theatre, the West End, like it's just everything. You've done so much, and all different styles, all different things. I'm interested to know how you've managed to balance your family life alongside that as well, because surely, like with filming something like Benidorm as well, you're out of the country for quite a while, and it must be a tricky balance to try and achieve.
It is. I mean, I think one of the good things is that if you are a writer as well, that's something that you don't have to go away from home for. So, but yeah, something like Benidorm, it started off as 5 weeks, and then it went to 8, then it went to 12. And as it went on and on, I realized I couldn't keep doing it as much as I loved it. And I did love it. I couldn't keep going away for that length of time, just for those reasons you've said. And my kids were getting older and approaching GCSE time, and I didn't want to miss out on that. So I felt confident enough at that point to say, I'm going to leave. And that's a hard decision to make, to leave a show that's very successful.
Yeah, it always makes me wonder how people do that, because that must be a massive choice, and you must kind of go through, I think I'd go through some kind of crisis of thinking like, can you hear that? It's my boyfriend. Did you hear that?
Heard a bump.
He's walking around upstairs, but it sounds like he's on a pogo stick. But yeah, I imagine that's such a huge decision, and the way that your brain would work is like, oh my God, but is this an awful time to be leaving it when it's kind of at the height of its success? And how did you make that choice, especially when you're making it as an individual?
Yeah, I mean, I felt confident that because we had Inside Number 9 had started by that point, I thought, okay, well, I've got something else going. And I was doing Benidorm as an automatic thing in a way. I loved doing it so much, but because I wasn't only relying on that for income, it made it a lot easier. And we decided as a family, we were the Garvey family, and we decided as a family we would leave together. So I wasn't leaving anyone in the lurch. I think it's a lot harder if you've been in, say, a soap, and that's your one source of income, and you do that all the time. That is your work throughout the year. A lot harder to do it in those circumstances, and some people have struggled and some people have made a big success of it. I have been lucky in that I've always felt in control of my career because of the writing, and because I've always had something on the go that's been my show.
Yeah.
So Benidorm, something like that, is a total bonus for me. I had a ball, but it wasn't. It was an easy decision to make ultimately.
I'm not going to keep you too much longer, Steve, because I'm aware that I'm about to go over our time, but I just have like 2 more questions. I'm really intrigued to know when people start to feel success. At what point did you suddenly feel like, oh, I've made it?
Well, I mean, I was still working at Variety when we did the first series of The League of Gentlemen. And I think when that was recommissioned for a second series, I felt brave enough to say, this is going to be my job now. So I gave up working for Variety. And I'll tell you a moment that crystallized it, because of course it came out in 1999, and it was really I think the internet was around, but it was a lot harder to access stuff. There was no Twitter. There wasn't an instant reaction. You used to get the reviews in the newspaper and some phone calls from your friends. But when we went on tour, I think it was after the second series, probably 2001, and me and Rees would rise up on harnesses. And the opening night in Bristol, when we came up above the shop as Tubbs and Edward, and the reaction from the audience, it's giving me goosebumps now thinking about it. The screams of joy and pleasure, the laughter, seeing the audience light up. And I just looked at Rees, I had tears in my eyes, and we couldn't believe. We were like rock stars almost. And it was at that point I really understood what this show meant to people. Having done Edinburgh, having done rooms of 50 people in a sweaty black box, to be in a proper theatre with 1,000 people, and they're all there for you, and they've come to see you specifically do your thing, and the love they had for those characters. I think that's when I realized, yeah, that was it. That was a great moment.
Yeah, wow. So you've got another season of Inside Number 9. Have you got to write that still, or have you written?
No, that's already written, because we ended up filming the ones that we wrote in Zoom sessions for season 6. So we've done a bit of a mishmash with season 6. It's not exactly what we wanted, but the BBC are crying out for shows at the moment. So we'll probably try and film this summer if we can, season 7. And then beyond that, I really don't know. I mean, I'm hoping to do a show in the theatre, and the theatre's been the hardest hit. I feel for everyone who works in any live, stand-up comedy, musicians, people who work in theatres. It's been devastating. So I really hope that we can get them open as soon as possible. So as soon as the West End opens up, I'm meant to be doing The Pillow Man.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I don't really know. I am so lucky in that I get to play a real variety of characters. I get to play a different genres, and that's just within Inside Number 9. But it's meant that, a lot of comedy people find it hard to do cast in straight roles and what I would call straight drama. I would love to do some more of that, but I will always be a comedy person, and but to have that variety in 1 year, I could be doing, my own show. I could be writing for 6 months. I could be playing like Emperor Claudius in Britannia, riding on an elephant, and then I could be, like I say, Tony Martin in one room doing this interrogation. I mean, and then I could be doing a play. So it's a very, very, very fortunate position to be in. But it has come out of me showing people what I can do from the very, very beginning, if you like. So all that work, all that early experience of doing that stuff has stood me in really good stead now.
Yeah. And so on that then, what would be your advice to new graduates or people just starting out in their career, or people who've had a break and are potentially feeling a little apprehensive about returning?
I think, just be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up when things don't go your way. I've had things that I've wanted to do, jobs I've wanted to get, parts I've wanted to get, and they haven't gone my way. Same as any actor, of course. And it's about finding something that brings you joy, and it might be something that's related, or it might be something else, or it might just be, I'm going to go do some exercise or get out and do a walk. I mean, it's about doing the things that you do for yourself. But in terms of, the opportunities that are going to arise out of this, we've already seen how creative people have been just doing stuff online and doing stuff on TikTok and doing stuff on YouTube, and no one's stopping anyone doing that. It's all available to everyone. You can put your stuff out to the world if that's the kind of thing you want to do. No harm can come from it. I mean, for me, I would always encourage people to show their own work, whatever that is, in whatever way they can. All the crap things that happen to you, all the things that you actually can laugh about because they're so crap and they're so embarrassing, and they stay with you and you can use them. And I'm still writing. I keep notebooks. I mean, they're all here. All these are my notebooks, and I don't throw them away, because even if it's something I wrote 5-6 years ago, I'll still find something in it. Yeah. So, we did these touring jobs, and we wrote Legs Akimbo Theatre Company. And so we did the job restart things, and we wrote it as Pauline. So none of it's wasted. Yeah. None of it. All those experiences are never wasted.
Is your BAFTA just back there as well, or is that in your toilet?
No, that's downstairs. But I have got my the thing I'm very proud of. Ooh. Richard Osman's House of Games.
Champion.
That won't fit on because it's so big, so I keep that one up here. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I won't keep you any longer, Steve. Thank you again so much. You've been very generous with your time with me.
Total pleasure.
So there you have it. That was Steve Pemberton. Tune in next time when I'll be speaking to the star of Channel 4's Humans, the In-Betweeners 2 movie, and Outnumbered, Emily Berrington. And in the meantime, do give us a like and share it with a friend. This podcast was recorded, edited and produced by me, Victoria Blunt, with music from the musical genius Joey Hickman. Thanks to Emma Fawcett, Eva Filer, Alistair MacDonald and Alan Stanley Harrison.